What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So, as always, make sure you like and subscribe down below if you haven't already. Drop your comments as well with any thoughts you might have on the video, whether it's about Summer League or just things you want to hear me talk about in the future. You may have saw yesterday, I want to start interacting with you guys a little bit down there in the comment section. Really appreciate you leaving your thoughts. I appreciate all of the support on the page. Let's keep it rolling and let's jump right in today. Want to say I'm a little bit disappointed coming out of Summer League. I'm going to tell you why. Want to chat about a couple names, including AJ Johnson, that I'm really just not sure did enough in their Summer League performances to prove they're part of the future core here in DC. Want to chat still on that same theme about just some of the biggest questions I saw you guys have coming out of those first four Summer League games. And lastly, why I think there are more moves on the horizon and maybe potentially in the near future, whether it's a Marcus Smart buyout, a Corey Kispert trade. I think Will Dawkins is going to be up to something soon. So let's jump right in here today. The Wizards finishing Summer League with a 1-3 record after dropping game 4 to Utah. I realize the Summer League record doesn't matter a whole bunch. I know even yesterday I said throughout this year we're going to have to embrace individual successes of some of these players. We can't focus on the record so much. We have to just look at individual growth. And we saw that. I know we had some impact performances from some of the draft picks over the last couple years. However, look, coming into this summer league, the expectation, or maybe some of the expectations, were could the Wizards win the summer league title? They certainly weren't to go 1-3 and really not be competitive for a lot of that action. That might not have been a realistic expectation. Let's be honest, going in. Realistically, Bub, Alex Sarr might play again in a couple of weeks, or expected to play again in a couple of weeks with France. Keyshawn George, we're only going to play a couple games in Summer League, especially those second year guys. So maybe that wasn't a realistic expectation going in. However, after an 18-win year last year, I know a lot of you guys are like this as well. We would have liked to see a little bit more competitive play throughout most of the Summer League action. I would have liked to see Trey Johnson and Will Riley in particular. I understand if there was, legitimate injury worry there, but I would have liked to see those guys maybe get a little bit more run in the summer league, whether that was pushed into game 3. Even the second year players, I wouldn't have mind seeing get another game together. Remember, everything right now is about development and evaluation. And I know it's just one summer league game, but I think any opportunity you have to do that, it's maybe a good idea to take. And I think the Wizards may have missed that chance here this summer league. Again, we still had some awesome individual performances, whether it was Alex Sarr's 8 block game, Jameer Watkins' 8 steal performance. Trey Johnson, again, I thought was phenomenal in both of his outings in the summer league. But again, just I can't help but feeling maybe slightly underwhelmed coming out of this summer league. And I want to talk about a couple of names that I think in their own right were maybe a little bit underwhelming, and I'm not sure did enough to really prove they're part of the future core here. And the first one I'll give you is AJ Johnson. I know he had a big game against Utah, 25 points. Finally got a little more efficient, was 10 of 16 from the floor. And maybe the big thing for him in that game was he made 2 of his 5 3-pointers. But I'm just not sure there's a ton, or if he did enough to really, again, prove he's part of that core just because of the massive stockpile we have of just young talent here already. And I think his summer league roster placement really tells you all you need to know. He was part of the second group really firmly in those first 2 games, and then he wasn't one of the guys that got shut down after the first 2 games. He got elevated into the starting lineup, obviously giving him a big opportunity here. Now, okay, we've benched, or not benched, shut down the starters from the first couple of games. Let's see what you can do as the primary ball handler. And he had an inefficient 20 points against Philadelphia, and I know he was more efficient against Utah. But again, I'm just not sure he proved, over those two games, he had only 4 assists as really the primary ball handler for the offense. And running an offense right now, we've discussed, is a need right now in this roster, even with the potential starting lineup. But I'm not sure he proved that he really is that guy. And I just think there's going to be so many players, honestly, just scrapping and clawing for minutes. I wonder if a guy like AJ Johnson is going to maybe be one of the odd men out of this future core. I know there's so much talent there. A lot of you guys are really excited about him, but I think he's going to need a lot of playing time to develop that talent, kind of like we saw in the summer league. That game 4 against Utah was probably his best performance, and he sort of just continued to get better the more he was on the court. The problem is, I'm not sure he's going to get enough opportunities on the court to develop the way he needs to. And I think a similar thought you can maybe kind of assign to Dylan Jones, who was acquired from OKC this summer. I just don't know if Jones, got the big opportunity to start there in game 3, only finished with 5 points on 2 field goal attempts, and then had 12 points on 4 of 12 shooting against Utah. I'm just not sure where he fits in. And again, I think the role that both of those guys had on this summer league roster and sort of their placement on it tells you a lot about what you need to know about the front office's thoughts about them moving forward. So I posed this question on Twitter last night after the game and got a couple of responses that I want to dig into. Really, your guys' big questions still remaining after these first 4 Summer League games. Wizards still have one more game on the Summer League schedule. It's a TBD opponent, not going to make the top 4 of the Summer League standings and be in the, that little semifinal playoff that goes on. Um, but really, the main responses I saw honestly aligned with sort of my thoughts and my questions as well. One big one: did Alex Sarr prove enough offensively to show that he can be a franchise cornerstone moving forward? And honestly, I chatted about this a little bit yesterday on the video on my episode, yesterday's episode, excuse me. If you want to go check that out, but I think he did, and I realize it's still a work in progress at that end, but I really do think he's going to continue to add to his bag and develop and find ways to just get his shot off in the lane and get a little bit smoother, so that everything isn't just so contested for him at that end. And hey, he might never be, the defensive end of the court might always be, what he's just a little bit better at and what makes him dominant. Right now, he's showing defensive player of the year potential, to be quite honest, with the way he was blocking shots. And while that might always be, the slightly stronger side of his game, I do think that he has shown enough development that he is going to turn into a solid offensive piece at some point in his career. And then the other big question mark that a lot of you guys had, and I have as well, is can Bub Carrington run this offense? Can he really be a point guard? I love Bub. So many aspects of Bub's games, whether it's his size, his mentality. He was so good defensively, really, against Brooklyn in Summer League game 2. But can he run and distribute an offense the way it needs to be is a big question mark. And even in a year that might be considered developmental, being able to get everyone their touches, as I talked about yesterday, is going to be really key and could hurt things if Bub isn't quite able to do that. So, lastly, today, I want to tell you why I think there's going to be movement coming up here this offseason. Look, all the GMs have been hanging out in Vegas for the last week, not just scouting, but talking to each other and scheming and figuring out what they can do to improve either their team or their team's situation. And while I know we haven't heard Corey Kispert rumors in a while, that's kind of quieted down. It doesn't really seem like there's maybe a market for Marcus Smart out there. I'm sure Will Dawkins has been doing some of that. He's been chatting, trying to figure out what maneuvers he can make. And I wouldn't be shocked if all of a sudden, and I'm not going to tell you when or where or even who, but in the next few weeks, something goes down with this roster. There's talks about maybe Marcus Smart getting bought out. I wouldn't be surprised again to see Kispert get moved on from. I know, for the last month or so, the talks there have sort of quieted it down. But if you remember, before Jordan Poole got traded, really for a week or so, those talks had sort of calmed down as well after they had been a buzz up until that Desmond Bane to the Magic trade. But then after that, they sort of settled as well. And then boom, the McCollum Poole deal. Of course, other players involved, Olynyk coming over as well. But we'll keep you posted on everything Will Dawkins is up to right here on Wizards Latest. Once again, guys, I appreciate all of the support. I appreciate you tuning in every single day. We are dropping videos daily, Monday through Friday. So make sure you like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on the video or what you might want to hear me talk about next. And thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.